Linda, the professional broadcaster, to filling in for me while I'm gone. And I know you did an awesome job because I watched it. But, you know, I come up with these topics because I want to know the answers to the questions I'm going to ask. So a lot of this is purely selfish motivation. So, you know, I hope you're curious about the same things I am and that you get something out of it. But this is sort of a complex topic today, and it's complex for me, maybe not for some of you. I think Robert probably delves over into some of the things I'm going to ask about land. But I'll try to dummy down for my own purposes at some point, and John, of course. But, you know, selling vacant land can be intimidating. I mean, we don't have a picture to paint. We don't have these glorious photos that we spend thousands of dollars on. There's not really a story. And so it's a different sales technique. And frankly, the skills that I'm best at, I really can't use in vacant land. So it really requires some effort from me. But I want to show you guys how much land has sold over the last 12 months, if we can get that up there. As you see, and I think this data takes us through everything from, you know, a $20,000 lot all the way through a mega parcel. But some significant opportunity there that I think a lot of us, including me, look at it more accidentally. You know, I don't get up every day and go, let me go find some land to sell. So, but maybe we should, you know, and for those of you that worked back in the height of the market, I know Andrea was probably selling a lot of land back in the day, but, you know, it doesn't seem as readily available for us now, but it's still there, apparently. So Craig sells a lot of land. He came from that background and puts a lot of deals together, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Craig had a great quote leading into this, and I'll let you see what he said about that, about land.
There we go.
Craig? I'll let you read that out loud. It's a tongue twister.
It's fishing for whales, dreaming of unicorns and rainbows. And you know, whenever I'm working on a deal, I always say that because, you know, it's anything in sales. Whether I was in software sales, you always had that big fish you were trying to get. And, you know, I call it whale fishing because, one, you can't catch a whale unless you fish for it. And two, you know, if you do catch it, how, you know, you get it on the hook, how are you actually going to catch the whale? And the other important thing is, you know, our everyday business, you know, whether it's selling houses or condos, you know, that's what keeps the food on the table. And, you know, you can slowly grow your business, but then it's like everybody's like, man, I'd love to do that $12 million deal or that $10 million deal. Well, to do that, you have to go somewhere else to do it. And it's a different bait to catch the whale. It's a different way to fish for the whale than you normally do. And while you're fishing for that whale, you're not catching your groupers and snappers, which are putting food on the table. So there's a lot of risk to do it, and obviously not everybody catches a whale. And when you don't catch the whale, you don't have anything. So the reason why I say unicorns and rainbows is until it's caught and done and you have a check in hand, it's dream world and it's la la land. So, and I've caught myself many times getting to the altar, which we'll talk about, you know, ring on the finger and the deal falls apart and you're just like, ugh.
So the lesson learned is it's a blend with whatever else you do. I mean, especially if you already have a successful and growing business. But, you know.
And it takes a lot of time. You know.
But if you're new at it, learn it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, I certainly am go after the whales, so just in a different way. But, you know, let's start with, if you will, let's just start from the beginning. And again, we're talking about big parcels here, but we're going to go into a little bit more simplistic side of that in a minute. But Craig's specialty is the big stuff. So, you know, let's start with securing either the listing or the pocket listing. And you talked about a lot of what you have is a pocket listing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I assume your motivation for that is you think you have a buyer.
Absolutely. So, yeah, and I mean, just real quick how I got into all this. I mean, way back in the day, you know, back in 2004, we were looking at anything that moved because that's how you made money is you just a big parcel of land, you turn it into a subdivision, and you hit the gold mine. So, you know, when there was a lot of distressed property, I was getting calls from investors because we had a lot of abandoned subdivisions. So there was a period of time where at least once or twice a week I was taking big whales around looking, I called them pipe farms. They were just abandoned subdivisions with pipes sticking up everywhere. Well, D.R. Horton ended up purchasing a lot of
Yeah.
those. So I built my network.
Shame on all of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
I built my network of buyers and clients just from that period of time. So, and we've all seen it. You drive through neighborhoods and you go, man, what's going on with that parcel? And it's a big parcel in the middle of anything. You're like, that'd be great for townhomes. That'd be great for this. You could put 10 houses on it. And so you start doing some research and, you kind of go, oh, that there's something there and I may have a buyer for it, and working on a couple of those right now. Tricky things with it is, you're just talking about securing the listing is, a lot of the higher profile properties, they don't want to give listings.
So John and Robert may be doing exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's, if you think you have a great idea and it's something no one's thought about, there's a chance there's 12 other agents working the same thing. And, you make that call to the buyer and they go, hey, I've gotten 12 calls from 10 different agents in the past 6 months. Are you interested in listing it? No, but I will sell it. How much? Bring me an offer.
I'll tell you, and we didn't talk about this before, but one of the most brilliant moves in the market, and I started seeing this, in 2009 when I started, and of course I didn't know enough to be dangerous, but so let's say you don't get the listing, but it's a visible parcel. There's usually less regulation from the county on signage rights on a vacant parcel, so the value of having your sign in the ground, as we see with somebody who does not work for Keller Williams who has yellow and blue signs, if you know what I mean, it's just over the top valuable. That alone, just to get a sign in the ground is an amazing feat and it's a career maker. If you get enough of them. So let's say you go after a listing or you go after a pocket listing. What's your goal? We talked about that.
Yes. So obviously from
to sell it. But
representing your seller, you need to find the highest and best use for the property. And really that's where your expertise comes in. You got to decide if it's, you're going to put a house on it and someone's just going to buy it, or maybe 3 houses, or there may be an opportunity to do townhomes or multiple homes. And that's something you just got to look at and see if it's something, we talk about absorption rates. If I put 30 houses here, can the market absorb it? And if they do, what price point are they going to be? It makes no sense to put $30 million homes somewhere where, the price point's $500,000. At the end of the day, when you get to that point, you have unsellable product. And obviously, you got to look at how you time the market. When you talk with your sellers, it's just like a house. How motivated are they to sell it? Do they have to sell it now, or they've held it since the 70s and they don't need to move it, so they're willing to take that risk and that journey with you? And that's what you need to decide. And then that's where you start looking at zoning. Can it be rezoned? Is it worth it to even rezone?
Right.
How much money is the seller willing to put in to even, go through that rezoning process or not?
And we talked about, liability, and always a concern with agents on giving advice or offering advice or even offering an opinion. But so let's start with zoning. And you had a story for me earlier. I can't remember exactly what it was, but let's start with zoning. And how far do you go with that? Do you represent them at a hearing, or how?
Yeah, I've had many 20 different stories I could use, but sometimes if they're past failed developments, they've already had development orders that have expired, they've already had it platted, they've had drawings, and it's already been rezoned. So that's easy work. All you just got to verify is it still valid today?
Do you have an example where you did go further for the client? Because
Yes.
I'm always worried about getting sued. That's just me.
Yes,
but
so
I am.
we had one. It was a Gulfront condo development, 100% pre-sold, foundations in the ground. They had $54 million into the project, the previous seller. Obviously, it crashed and burned. They gave everybody their money back. My buyer, we're 2 years of due diligence, bought it for $4.1 million.
Right.
But I was the one sitting in city council meetings. I was the one speaking to city council because his development order was about to expire. And once it expired, its zoning was not high-rise condo anymore. And of course, the neighbors didn't want it zoned. So we had to get an extension, which we thought was going to be an easy thing. We're about to get everybody to vote. And I'm about to do the high five, and then the city attorney's all, wait, we've got 9 more of these developments. If we say yes to this one, we're going to say yes to the other 9. So what became a quick meeting turned into a 2-year process.
And was there any financial reward for you on
No.
that? Okay. Yeah, and then that's always...
And the other side of it, too, is, we talked about this, personally, I would like not the beach to be built up with high-rises everywhere.
And from an environmental standpoint?
Yes, from an environmental. So you've got your personal side where you don't want it all built up, but at the second half is it's your job, and you're representing, a buyer, and that's how you make your income. So, I struggled with it a lot, and I managed to come through pretty good, but, a lot of these things, if it's a high-profile parcel that people don't want built, they'll start trashing people, and I've seen it happen to other agents, the buyers. They'll start trashing on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. It gets tough. So, those are things you need to think about is, oh, geez, I'm going to be harming turtles and dolphins if I build this thing. And, that's just something you got to consider when you go through the process. So in that one, the end story is we ended up rezoning it. We passed a new ordinance, and we passed it for 9 other condo subdivisions.
And so there was a reward at that.
There was a reward.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And in land, that's ultimately whether we're at this level or we're selling a lot, you're hoping that your big bang is on the other side, and you're hoping that you do secure that buyer and that you do secure the listing. One strategy that I have if I'm representing a buyer, and obviously I always hope I'm representing a buyer on land, and I don't think I've done any big land deals, but I do a lot of $1 million lots. But my agreement with whomever I sell it to is that I get the listing. So because that there is a lot of value and such scarcity in especially Gulffront property or properties in desirable neighborhoods, I make that very clear on the front end that I'll give you first opportunity, but I expect the listing. And I don't think I've ever failed to get it. I think I've always gotten it. And the most beautiful ones are where you sell it just over and over, and it's the gift that keeps on giving, and it's a beautiful thing.
That's a great point. And, I need to start doing that.
Yeah.
Usually I'm so good that they want me to relist it, but
oh no.
And I always try to use analogies. I guess I use this one for dating. Is, now I've got the parcel. It was supposed to be developed. Now it's for sale. So now I'm meeting with all these new buyers, and I always say you look for the long term. The big bang, it's at one point it was 234 units, 110 million sellout. Holy cow, you can start, your commission dollars start ringing, how awesome it's going to be. You can't get offended if it's ending up, I'm going to call it a one-night stand. Because whoever...
All his analogies are about
seriously,
relationships.
is you're working this for months, and now you've got the listing, which you're excited about, but now you're seeing, oh my God, these people really are going to develop it? It's 110 million, 234 condos. I want it. Well, they've got relationships with XYZ company, and they're going to want them to list it. So now you're like, oh, geez, it's only $8 million instead of 110, and it hurts, especially when you've worked on it and that's your end goal, and you've put, now for me going on 4 years with this one project. So, those are the things you got to look at that. You can't take it personally. $8 million is still a good deal. It's still a good transaction.
I will interject here as I sit, and look at what we have in terms of resources in the room. But, for those of us that don't have big teams, which are not many of us, frankly, what an opportunity this room brings
Yeah.
to set up a team specific to a project,
Oh, yeah.
and whether that's, a project director or some sort of project manager who has simple sign-up sheets for somebody to sit floor duty at a project or, sign on temporarily. But I don't think that our industry does a very good job of building
Right.
these many teams. And I certainly think with this kind of mass of people that Jeff would be so willing to do that. Right, Jeff?
Oh, yeah. It is a, that's one of the benefits is how many agents we have. And Jeff and I have had many
Right.
conversations on multiple projects. Sales trailer, marketing dollars, agents, how big the teams are. It starts growing pretty
It does.
quickly.
And we talked about a warning with land, and again, I'm always afraid I'm gonna get sued. I have not been sued yet, but I do have a tendency to go, oh, we can do that. But
Yeah.
I just had a listing at 69 Chivas Lane, and it's one of the lots along 30A that's divided horizontally to the Gulf. So there's a Gulf front parcel and a rear parcel that started out as a long 400-foot parcel. So I represented it as a singular parcel that had the ability to build on the front. I didn't offer the two for sale because I didn't think that was as valuable. Put it under contract the day we listed it. It's at $265, and the contract's almost for list. But really, really smart agent on the buyer's side. Really smart agent. And Craig and I were talking about this beforehand. My question was, would you have done this? And both of us said no. But
Yeah.
he went so far into due diligence that he actually applied for the building permit on that front parcel to see if it could happen. No. So they had never filed the plat, the original owner. They'd pulled a parcel number. It showed as a separate parcel in Walton County. The owner had been paying taxes on both parcels at the tune of $1 million valuation apiece since he'd owned them from the 90s. But the plat was not recognizable because it had never been filed. It was not possible to rezone it because the density was not allowable at that address. But finally, he's an attorney from Atlanta, so he did sue. Well, actually, he didn't sue. He hired a firm from Pensacola, and fortunately, we have a realtor now on the Planning Commission, Joe. I've forgotten his name. I'm sorry. He.
I don't know.
Okay. And anyway, he had this sense to at least interpret some things. But I do understand, we were talking about this earlier, that is very common in Walton County,
Oh, yeah.
that you buy a lot and you think you've bought a lot and you think you could build a house and you find out nobody ever filed a plat. And if it wasn't done before 1996, it's quite likely that it can't be recognized now. And as I understand it, in the north part of the county, there's entire subdivisions that people have bought individual lots in that you can't build a house on. So, be really careful with it. Can I get you?
Yep.
Okay. So again, a big warning sign,
Yeah.
and I'll go back to my big question is, okay, take us to some of the environmental issues, wetlands, and how do you give advice without being liable? And what are you looking for?
Yeah, anything you put out, whether it's we call them offering or offering memorandum when you do projects, you always got to have those legal disclaimers that, the buyer's responsible for all their feasibility and due diligence and you can't be held liable. Anything that's got wetlands or you're on a coastal dune lake, you need to tread very, very carefully because those are extremely complicated. And I'll tell you, even the county doesn't even have the answers to many of them. They won't even give answers because what the planning department and the building department and what's been platted and not platted, it is extremely complicated. So it's, a lot, you'll probably see a fair number of, if you look on lots on 30A that are on coastal dune lakes that are just sitting there because you don't know if it's worth 600,000 or zero because your building footprint's the size of this table. You couldn't even put an elevator shaft on it. And that's where you got to be really careful. And you just, it's, they always say, buyer beware. They just got to do their due diligence and let
So
them.
you say that aloud. I would do this, but buyer beware. I'm sorry. I don't know. Can we hold the questions? I'm going to get to them just a second. Thank you very much. So, some heady stuff here, and we don't have a whole lot of time because I do want to take you guys to questions. I will say this personally is, I came from the billboard business, so I know a lot about zoning and planning and zoning, and the most hated industry by environmentalists. And I could tell you how to get rid of a tree if you need to, but I won't. So, but a lot of what we're talking about, I don't know, and I honestly, do I plan on learning it all? Probably not, but. Craig is very generous. John is very generous. Robert is very generous and available. And I always say when I go out and outside of my field of expertise, if I'm asking a couple questions to somebody, I find most people in this room to be so generous. If I'm asking them to get involved and take me through it, then I'm going to offer up part of it to them. And Craig and I just had that conversation in the room a minute ago, and he was telling me about something he had, and I'm like, I have somebody. And he said, well, I can't tell you because I don't have the listing. And I said, well, I'll split the buyer with you. Just tell me what it is. So,
I got a lot of those.
There's no point in being having a mindset of scarcity in this industry, and there's plenty to go around, plenty to share, and I think if you find that if you do that, you'll have an incredible experience and learn a heck of a lot going down that road. So. With that said, that's my little sermon for the day, and I will open it up to questions. I
have two questions.
Sure.
One, who do you call, or what are the avenues to find out if it's been platted or not? Mm-hmm. What are those resources?
So the easy ones, and it makes your job real simple, is you just go to the clerk of courts for whatever county it's in. If it was ever replatted or anything, or there was a past subdivision, all that stuff's typically
not in this case, though. I'll tell you,
it
wasn't.
Not in that one.
You can't. Just because there's a parcel number does not mean the plat was filed. As I understand it, they had to go as far as they went to discover this.
So how did they find out? Who did they?
I had this brilliant agent on the other side.
He filed for a permit.
He filed for a permit.
Okay. Okay, and that's how he found out it wasn't platted.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, but one thing I'll do is I'll just go down to South Walton County. I'll call them and say, look, I need to look at this file. They'll have the box waiting for me.
You'll go through it.
And I go through every thing there is.
So you know that if there's no plat.
If there's any developments or past things, so you have that in hand.
Yep.
Yeah.
You also have to be careful because, like up 393 Nursery Road, for instance, there was a 10-acre parcel. They were divided into half-acre parcels years ago. Before that, there were town of Santa Rosa lots in there.
Yep.
We had actually, a friend of mine bought 2 half-acres, and anyways, they had 4 town of Santa Rosa lots, 2 meets and bounds lots. It took them 3 months to finally get the old planning director guy, or planning zoning guy, a couple people ago to write a letter. It took them 3 months. They finally did. About a year later, somebody tried to build a house on one of those half acres. They said, this is in the wrong flood zone, so there's only 1 unit here. And somebody'd already built one on the corner. Well, that letter solved everything. So,
yeah. Again, be careful about what you're. Yeah.
And my second question was, I've sold 1 lot. And I think the hardest thing about it is because you can't paint the picture. Mm-hmm. You don't have anybody calling to schedule showing appointments. Yes. You don't know who's looking at it. So what do you think, just for simple lots, not the 110 million, although we'd love to have those, but if you're selling a lot in your neighborhood, what are the best avenues to market that lot?
Well, a couple things is, a lot of times, if they're looking at homes and they're not finding what they like, especially right now because inventory is getting low or prices are getting too high,
right?
They're going to be driving around looking for a lot. So obviously good signage is good. I would recommend not clearing the lot.
Clearing it.
Not. Okay. And when I say clearing, I'm talking if it's got pretty scrub bushes and everything, just don't churn and burn the thing because in 2 weeks it's going to look a mess. Mm-hmm. It's better just to clear the front, maybe some in between the bushes so they can walk the lot. I think it's much more beneficial than just clearing it down to the sand.
That was a question I had earlier.
The other thing is aerial photography. If it's helps, a lot, especially now with drones. It's very easy to get high quality footage, and then you just draw a line around it. If it's close to something pertinent, the Gulf, a lake, something that you can't see from standing on the back of a pickup truck, that's where aerial photography will help.
Are there other avenues to reach out to market the property?
You go through the neighborhood and see if anybody's built a spec, and then you call the spec builder,
Okay.
or you call the agent who represented them.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how we do it. But.
and I'll give you an example on that. I mean, I had a lot in Carolina. Ordered the sign, blog post, all the stuff, photos, everything. As I'm driving through the neighborhood, I'm like, oh, Marty's building in here. Pick up my phone.
Right.
Marty, do you want a lot in Carolina? Yes. Which one is it? It's the one next to the one you're building. I'll take it. Sold.
After you spend all the
Yeah.
money on everything else.
Right. No, we do that.
And
You
I'm
know,
like, oh,
and on that
geez,
vein,
what am I
I-
going to do with this sign now?
I think Craig pretty much follows what I do. Is if you identify that person and you know that agent personally that represented them, I usually call the agent.
Yep.
And if it's somebody that disappears or what, I'll call the person. So, or somebody I don't like. Somebody I don't like. So, I think Glenda had one question. Jeff, we got time for what, 2 more?
Sure.
Is that okay? All right, Glenda.
Mine's more on the, representing the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think trying to, again, look for resources if you've got wetlands. And, I mean, how do you advise your buyer, these are the steps we need to get to for you to do your due diligence on that lot? I mean,
Right.
that's-
It really depends on what it is, right? So, as Robert had mentioned, a good spot is starting with the county. They'll talk about density, egress, if it's on a corner, which roads, if you're talking about a house where the driveway is going to come in. Again, online you can see flood maps and all that, so you can look at it. You look at surveys. You'll know almost immediately if there's wetlands just almost by looking at it or what's around the neighborhood. Other good avenues just to get conversation started, to know how deep you need to go in investigation, is talking to neighbors or other lots that have sold around there. Because
Good, that's good. Yeah.
here's a great question. Is the lot next to the one she had is now for sale? Let's just say it's a vacant lot.
Right.
Well, they'll call Cindy. She's already done 90% of the homework to give you all the red flags. So then you go, oh, geez, all right. Well, then I do need to do this, and this, and I need to check that.
And hope that's not an agent that you called around to their buyer.
Yeah.
Which is why we need to call each other, right? Linda, is that your same question, or do you have a different?
No, I'm still a little concerned about the plotting question.
I know, I knew that would be like,
Um,
but it's true.
So, is this kind of a Walton County problem and not
Yes.
so much maybe Okaloosa?
No, it's
okay.
believe it or not, it's
Okay.
all
Pretty
over.
appropriate.
Because what happens a lot of times is you have a lot, an agent tells the seller at that time, it would be better if it was 4 lots. So then they subdivide it. Well, sometime during that, during the heyday when everybody's busy, it doesn't get filed correctly. And now, and I just had one in Inlet Beach, again, Walton County again, but I've also seen it in Bay County, where now it's still showing as 1 lot. And I'm sure you guys have seen it whenever you go on the parcel maps. There's 2 lots there, but it's only showing 1. So it's all over. It's just, they're just clerical errors. So you just gotta look and dig around. So or it goes from 1 lot to 4 back to 1. I've seen that too.
Because
The
I'm dealing with a lady who has 3 lots in Old Destin. And she keeps saying it could be 4, and years ago somebody wanted to do whatever, so I need to investigate that. She's got a very old house that, in my opinion, probably yours too, needs to be torn down to move on. But, it's like Old Destin. There's a great house here and a bad one here.
So always go to your smallest municipality. They
Yep.
always rule. So
Okay.
not Okaloosa County, but City of Destin,
Right.
because they are a municipality. I don't think we have. What other municipalities do we have? Is that it? So everything else is by the county, right?
Just get a planner.
Yeah. This Walton County thing, as I understand it, they lost all their records in '96,
Okay,
and
now I was gonna say
so
Y96, yeah.
is that right, John?
Well, what's happened is that the comp plan, we're second the second to the last to develop a comp plan in the state of Florida, 60
Yeah.
counties. And so we have a comp plan that doesn't match the land development code.
Yep.
So Craig goes in, and he says, my client wants to go back to this 4-lot subdivision, and the land development code may say, welcome, way to go, you meet all the rules.
Right.
But then the comp plan that was enacted in 96, 97 says, no, you can't do that because of this rule. And I'll, if I just interject that,
yeah.
here's where we are as an industry in Walton County. Get involved, make some of the county meetings, let people know that you're in real estate and you're sitting up on that board, because when things were going really well for the developers, the realtors, in 99 to 2007, the South Walton Community Council, there may be some members of it in here as far as I know, but what they did is they made the rules more difficult for us and worse for the landowner. And they've got these rules that the county finally has gotten a consultant who's helping match up the land development code and the comp plan. And the same thing is true with the corridor beautification ordinance. Every time, I hope I'm not on my soapbox, Fraser.
That's okay, I'll stop you.
But here's every time that Craig sells a lot, or Cindy sells a lot, or one of us sells a lot to a builder to do a pet spec house, and they you want to put a sign on Highway 98, the county comes in and takes that sign off from 98.
Yep.
Yet you can put 5 signs on the highway. So the beautification side of it, there's going to be a press from some of us that's going to say, we want to be able to, on Thursdays and Sundays or every day, have a sign in the new rules that allows you to have new construction. At the very least, new construction. Because every time one of your builders builds a house, 4 times there's a year-round job. We've got to do it on the political side. So be at these meetings and just let people know that you're there.
Joe Johnson's on planning now, if y'all know him. Joe
Yeah.
Johnson, which.
And we've got, who looks like it's going to be District 5's county commissioner, goodbye Cindy, is Tony Anderson, who is sympathetic to
Yep.
business people. And so he needs to hear from you. We're going to get it's going to all change where it's a little bit easier. It's going to all change where it's a great deal easier, but we have to be involved. So.
And we're so thankful for people that do what John does and certainly speak out for all of us. So thank you for doing that. And, we need to wrap it up. I probably have time for one more question. Did anybody else have one? Okay, calling off. Yeah, go ahead. I thought you did.
Yeah, I just had a question about the wetland delineation.
Uh-huh.
When you go and you get your wetland science certificate, you get all that information from them, and then you find out that your lot does not have a large buildable footprint.
Yep.
You can still mitigate
Correct.
somewhere else that property so that you can build on it. It's very costly, but that is an option for the buyer.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And that the only challenge with those two is, and you'll see, is sometimes the seller's done that and they bought land and they had the permit, but you gotta continually renew it.
Right.
And so those are things you gotta look at. I mean, all these things have expiration dates, it's, just like docks, if you get from the,
That's a good,
the Corps of Engineers, it's, you just gotta make sure they keep those current, because you do all that, let's say your buyer does that, decides he's not gonna build and he's gonna sell it, well, he's just gotta make sure he keeps that current, because now the next buyer's gonna have to do it all over again.
So, in summary, the more sophisticated your buyer, the more likely they're going to have their own, or seller, they're going to have their own engineer and their own attorney that's going to advise them on this. But qualify, at least get them to a visual standpoint of highest and best use. But, don't commit anything that you're not capable of committing. Robert, did you have something?
I was just gonna say, contractually, just make sure you give them every out in the world so you're protecting their client.
During their due diligence, right? Yeah.
Don't let it be parade. You would have done.
Right. So thanks again for everybody coming.